So, good morning. I would like to continue with Vimala's beautiful book of talks from California that she gave in California in 1968. And this is a talk from San Francisco that she gave in San Francisco. I started it last time, but as I couldn't read for the last two mornings, I'm going to start all over again with this one. To me, love is maturity. Love is non-violence when expressed in human relationships, which is maturity. And lack of love is violence when expressed in human relationships. Individually or collectively, there seems to be a storm raging over the horizons of the global human family of bitterness and violence. One wonders when we are going to learn the way of love. One wonders when man is going to grow into maturity and finish this juvenile business of fighting in the name of race, religion, the nation, political ideologies, and economic theories. For me, life without love, life without God, has no meaning at all. All the physical comforts, material progress, economic security, and political stability become decorations of a tomb without love. Let us find out what we mean by love. How does one arrive at that dimension of love where peace reigns supreme? Where mutual understanding and reverence for one another becomes the perfume of relationships. Love surely is not a sentiment or a feeling. We live through the senses. We are either agreeably disposed towards certain things emotionally or disagreeably disposed towards some other things. This is what we call pleasure and pain, happiness and sorrow. They are not the facts of life. Whether we agree or disagree of a sensation, and agree or disagree of a sensation that arises in the mind. So, sorry, I didn't read that correctly. Whether we disagree or agree of a sensation in the sense organs, or we agree or disagree of a sensation in the mind, is termed joy or sorrow, pleasure or pain. Now, when I emotionally agree towards a person, when I'm agreeable towards a person, I say that I love that person. I have affection for that person. I would like to submit that that is not love. It is a feeling. It is a sentiment which results from the agreeability of a sensation. That's all it is. Love is not a sentiment or a feeling at all. Love is not instinct or impulse, which the human beings carry in their psychology as the hangover of the animal world. Impulse and instinct also create a kind of agreeable sensation. So impulsively, you feel attracted towards a person or you feel repulsed from a person. Repulsion is the shadow of attraction. It has no independent existence of its own. Such impulsive fascination or impulsive repulsion surely cannot be love. That attraction lasts as far as the momentum of the impulse can carry it. When the momentum of the impulse gets exhausted, the attraction fades away. Those who are intellectually developed feel attracted towards other persons who have similar thought tendencies, ideologies, and ideas. What is an idea or an ideology? It is organized thought, is it not? So I feel attracted towards other persons who have the same patterns of thinking, the same pattern of intellectual reactions to situations. And then I call that attraction love or affection. This is not love, surely. Similarity in thinking is not the foundation of love. Today I feel attracted, and tomorrow the person changes his ideology or his way of thinking. Then the person I felt attracted to and was my comrade become the competitors and enemies. That is what's happening in countries like Czechoslovakia and Russia today. So this attraction created by the stimulation of intellect in the same direction is not love. Thirdly, we take gratification of the ego as love or affection. I have a family, I have a husband or a wife and children. As long as the husband or the wife gratifies the ego, as long as the husband or the wife gratifies the ego, the will of the ego to dominate, the desire of the ego to own and possess things and individuals, to control and shape the behaviors of the members of the family, I say I love them. If the husband or the wife or the children cease to gratify my ego, if they grow into independent human beings, defying all my attempts to own, possess, and dominate them, then the so-called love of the husband or the wife gets converted into anger, hatred, enmity, jealousy. These are our daily experiences. So, we must confess to ourselves that we do not know what love is. I do not know how many of us will have the humility to say it even to ourselves, that we really do not know what love is. Our sentiment and feeling of love or affection, which is rooted in duality, which is only a temporary psychological tendency, and which has become the foundation of our life and relationships, is not love. We do not know what love is, and therefore we lack love in our lives. Of course, one can't describe or define what God is. Therefore, I hesitate to use the word. But for me, love is God, and God is love. And love is not different from truth. Call truth the fragrance of love, or call love the perfume of the truth. It's just the same. It's the same fact. The angle of looking at it may be different. We have huge libraries. We may have books on theology, philosophy, and metaphysics. We may hear the talks of saints and sages, and yet our lives are empty. When we depart from this world, we depart empty-handed. That is the root of all misery and sorrow. if we really see this as a plain truth of life and not as an idea of a crazy person coming from the East, if we see this as the naked truth in our daily life, then that very understanding will strip our consciousness of all vanity and pride. The real human civilization will not begin unless man learns the way of love. We are refining and culturing the external shells. The bodies and the minds are but shells within which we dwell. But inside these shells we are barbarians. So let us have the humility to say to ourselves that we have yet to discover how to live as a human being on the earth. One is not denying the significance of what man has achieved through science and technology, art, sculpture, and music. One does not deny the importance of sciences. But this is dealing with the world of symbols. All the languages in the world one may become proficient in, and yet one is dealing with symbols. Words are symbols, they're not the reality. One may learn classical music of the East and the West, and it may soothe the nervous system. It may pacify the surface consciousness. It may create and induce a state of silence for the mind. And yet, this all happens in the realm of symbols. One may be an artist, a sculptor, and deal with lines and shapes, light and forms, and create something which is very noble. But one must realize that all those lines and figures, the forms, the shapes, are symbols. We are using means of transport, which can take us faster and faster. The whole globe is shrinking. Space and time are shrinking before the efforts of the human brain. What is time? The social convenience invented by the human mind for arranging collective human relationships. Time has no reality. It is a symbol. So what man has achieved up till now is all in the realm of symbols created by the human brain. You may create computers, transmit into them the power of memory, repetitive and reproductive action. You may teach them even how to speak. You may teach everything that you as a human being can do. And yet it is in the realm of duality, in the realm of symbols alone. If one wants to understand what life is, one has to transcend the mind. One has to transcend the psychological structure created by the ego. We have to transcend the world of symbols. We're given names by our parents and society. We are Harry or Robert, Joan or Ruth. These are the names given to us. We are taught how to react emotionally and intellectually. We go on acquiring various patterns of thinking, feeling, and reacting. They're stored in our memory. We react according to those patterns, and we call them our thoughts and feelings. There is nothing original and nothing individual on the level of mind. Thoughts and feelings and patterns of reacting are created by society. One may decorate them in different individuals, but the psychological structure is a creation of society. As long as one is living in the prison house created by society, constructed by the ego, one will never be able to commune with life in a simple and direct way. I feel that the time is ripe for the whole human family, to go through a total psychological revolution. It is no more necessary to play about with the psyche, to give it new thoughts, ideas, and new ways of reacting. Man has to find out the way of stepping out of the psyche altogether. Man has to discover a new dimension. Man is so much more than his body and mind. So stepping out of the prison house created by the self is the beginning of religion. Religion is a personal discovery of the truths of life. So one has to launch upon an adventurous journey within. Journey beyond the mind is not outside of us, it is beyond within us. So it is an inward voyage, not an outward one. We cannot carry the mind with us on that voyage. Mind is unequal to the task of discovering what is beyond symbols. Mind is incapable of finding out anything except through the means of sense organs and the storehouse of memory. Either the mind has to refer to the senses or to memory. Mind cannot function in any other way but by these two. And these two are bound by symbols. Take away the symbol, take away the words, and the mind cannot even think. Can any person think without words? We also can't speak without words. So transcending the frontiers of our psyche cannot be an act of the mind. It cannot be an act of the will. The only thing one can do is to leave the mind with all its talents and capacities intact, in abeyance. With the cessation of mental activity, reactions come to an end, and the doors open to real action. It is not easy to live in that humility. Mind, the mischief maker and the creator of illusions, wants to peep in at every turn, distort and twist the response according to the convenience of the ego, the owner of the psychological structure. The very content of consciousness becomes the bondage. The very content of consciousness becomes the bondage. Sometimes we come to the periphery, and give a hand to another person for a moment. There are houses, but there are very few homes. There are so few real relationships. There are verbal exchanges, but very few relationships. There are adjustments to each other's idiosyncrasies, but very few friendships. That is the world we're living in today. So when one stands in humility and innocence, every mischievous trick of the ego is perceived in advance. Then that innocent gaze will be able to perceive what the fact of a human being really is. For me, every human being is a mystery. I do not know how one can dare say that I know my husband or my wife. They are dynamic, moving entities. They're not like chairs or tables, which are static. Every human being of tremendous, infinite potentiality of growing into divinity is a mystery. So every human being of tremendous, infinite potentiality of growing into divinity is a mystery. But we have the arrogance of judging others, the habit of judging and comparing others of trying to shape them according to the convenience of our ego, is what is blocking the flow of love, which is the essence of humanity. We have not got to acquire love from somewhere else. We are made of love. The essence of our life is love. But we are blocking the way of love in all possible ways. Then we live in misery. Then we live in sorrow. When one does not have the arrogance of judging, comparing, and evaluating others, when one tries to understand what the other says, then we will see that much of the misery in human relationships will be naturally and logically reduced. The tensions that we undergo, the suspenses, the excitements, and the depressions that we go through are unwarranted. The tensions that we undergo, the suspenses, the excitements, and the depressions that we go through are unwarranted. All the vices and weaknesses of human beings will get illuminated in the flood of understanding. A person maladjusted with the totality of himself creates disturbance. He misbehaves. He insults. He gets irritated. He gets annoyed. Annoyance, irritation, envy, and jealousy indicates friction within oneself, a conflict within oneself. So the response will not be out of anger, but the response will breathe compassion for that person. As the whole humanity is reduced to one global human family, it has become a historical necessity that man learns the way of compassion and love. It is not a must for some chosen few retiring from the mainstream of life, living in the monasteries, temples, and mosques in the mountains. It is a historical necessity for you and me to grow into the maturity of living with one another in love and in friendship. Human relationships should be motivated by love and lived through compassion. Then only the words brotherhood, peace, friendship, equality, and fraternity will have some meaning. We do use those words, don't we? But they do not mean much to us in our daily lives. They are decorations of the intellect and means of emotional recreation. Words are only means of transport between individuals. They are a means of communication. One has to be very attentive to understand what is indicated by the words. Religion for me is the personal discovery which cannot be get through the symbols. One may get acquainted with the symbols, but one has to go beyond them. We have human forms, we are human animals, but the human being is yet to emerge out of us. And the adventure of letting a human being be born within us must be gone through by every human being. Questioner: how must we apply ourselves in order to acquire this kind of confrontation with the self? Vimala: meditation seems to be the way. One can set about it by beginning to live in a creative way, not doing anything mechanically out of habit, not doing anything passively, but relating every moment. I'm going to read this again. So, how must we apply ourselves in order to acquire this kind of confrontation with the self? Meditation seems to be the way, Vimala says. One can set about it by beginning to live in a creative way, not doing anything mechanically out of habit, not doing anything passively, but relating every movement to the totality of our life and acting out of that. For meditation, it is obviously necessary to live in harmony with the body and the mind. The foundation of meditation is laid upon a scientific, sane relationship with the body and the mind. Then the harmony between the two creates a relaxation. In that relaxation, in the cessation of mental activity, energy gathers to its own source. It starts operating upon us. We do not have to operate upon it. It starts operating upon us. So I think until here today, thank you very much, and I wish you a great day. Bye for now.